All right, welcome to the fifth episode of the Ohio Valley Sports Blog video podcast. I'm BJ Anderson.
Cody. I'm Ian.
All right, let's open up. I guess there's a baseball series you're going to play starting tomorrow.
There's a big baseball series I'm going to play tomorrow.
World Series starts tomorrow between the Red Sox and the Cardinals. It's their fourth meeting in the World Series. The other three meetings coming in 2004, 1967, and 1946. The Red Sox came really close to beating the curse twice those years. They lost in 7 games both times. Cardinals looking for their 12th championship. Red Sox are 7th. Alrighty, and I'll let you go.
Okay. I've got a lot on this one. I've done my homework on this one. You got game 1 tomorrow night. You've got Lester throwing against Adam Wainwright. John Lester has just allowed 5 runs in 19 and a third innings total this postseason, which is just an absolutely unbelievable amount for a guy that I had a lot of questions about coming into this season, given how poorly he performed a year ago. He's really turned it around throughout the entire season, especially in the playoffs. He's shown that he really is the ace of that staff and should be going forward. Adam Wainwright, he's going off at 8 days rest. The last time he pitched was in Game 3 of the NLCS against the Dodgers. He has a 1.57 ERA in 3 starts in the postseason. That's unheard of kind of numbers for a starting pitcher in the postseason. He's been ridiculous. He's been on fire. That whole Cardinal rotation has just been really, really good, especially the rookie who they have going in Game 2, Michael Wacha, who went into Pittsburgh and almost throw a no-hitter against the Pirates in a playoff series. That was huge.
Okay.
Each team had a 97-65 regular season record. And going back to 2004, this is a fun little fact. They are the only 2 teams in Major League Baseball with 3 World Series appearances apiece. They met in 04. The Red Sox went back in 07, and they're back this year. The Cardinals were there in 04. Then they won in 2011, and they're back this year. Like you said, it's their 4th matchup. Teams that win Game 1 of the World Series have won 20 of the last 24 World Series. So you cannot understate the importance of this game tomorrow night for both teams. Get out in front early is going to be huge going into this series. I'm a little concerned, as I always am with these interleague series, about DH and the not DH. Especially in the Cardinals case, because for the first 2 games in Boston, Allen Craig is coming back to this lineup. It was officially announced today. This is a guy that hit .315 for the year with 97 RBIs. He's going to come in and he's going to be your designated hitter in those first 2 games. Then you shift back to St. Louis. So now on both sides you're at a bit of an impasse. Because not only do you have to figure out what to do with Adam Craig, but now if you're the Red Sox, you have 2 guys that have been hitting unbelievably well in this postseason. You have David Ortiz and you have Mike Napoli. Both of those guys are first basemen. Well, you can only play one first baseman. So who do you pick? In Game 3, they're going to go with Ortiz. In Game 4, they're going to go with Napoli. I don't know how that'll work out, but it's the only option that John Farrell really has, because those 2 have been 2 really, really hot bats in that lineup. I fully expect this to be a 6 or 7 game series. These are the 2 best teams in baseball, and they've been the 2 best teams in baseball all season long. It's going to be, I don't think it'll be a high scoring series either. I think this will be a very low scoring, pitching dominated kind of series, and it's going to come down to critical at bats in critical situations that are going to make the difference in this series. You're looking at maybe one of the best World Series matchups that we've seen in a long time because of how talented and how deep these teams are on every aspect of the team, and hitting and pitching and their bullpens. They're really, really good top to bottom. I'm looking forward to this. I'm excited about it. I'm nervous, but I'm excited.
All right. Yeah, it's really going to come down to the pitching in this series. The Cardinals really impressive because most of their starters are under the age of 25. I mean, Adam Wainwright's really your only real veteran. A couple of the younger guys have some postseason experience last year in 2011 going to the World Series. But I mean, it really comes down to the pitching. I mean, Michael Wacha has been unbelievable. I don't think he's given up a run this postseason yet, or the one run to
Pedro
Pedro Alvarez. But I mean, that's been it. but then you add in Adam Wainwright, the veteran. I know he's looked good this postseason, but he's looked really hittable. Game 5 against Pittsburgh, he really just, it was his will more than his pitching that led him to that performance. I mean, there were so many hittable pitches that the Pirates just left out on the plate. I mean, but you got to credit a guy pitching a complete game to clinch it for their team. The Red Sox, I mean, really, their pitching has been great. I mean, and you have guys who struggled last season. John Farrell has had a really big impact with his pitching coach experience. I mean, he's really turned that staff around. But it comes down to timely hitting, and these are a lot of people don't believe in the clutch factor, but if you do, these are the two most clutch teams in baseball. I mean, the Red Sox night after night, they're down 4 runs, all grand slam. They're down 3 runs, grand slam, we win. The Cardinals, I mean, they always seem to get the stupidest little dribblers, balls that are an inch fair, and they tie the game, they win the game. So, I mean, this is going to be a really fun series. Like you said, it'll probably go to 6 or 7 games. But with Boston having the home field advantage, they play really well at Fenway. So, I mean, I think I'm going to take the Red Sox in 7 in this one.
Yeah, that's a good prediction there. What I'm looking forward to is not really the first 2 games. It's what Ian is talking about in games. What they play three home games.
Yeah,
3, 4, and 5.
3, 4, and 5. Because I mean, David Ortiz is just not a fielder.
No.
I mean, I don't even know if he has his own glove or if he's gonna borrow somebody's.
Oh, he has a glove.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's a start. I mean, the guy's in the league to do one thing, and that's to hit home runs and get timely hits.
I mean, he used to play consistently at first base.
Right.
But
in his younger days.
Yeah, in his younger days when he was a lot more agile.
But even then, he wasn't always the greatest fielder.
I'm just saying, I don't know if that's going to play a factor. If the Cardinals get a couple balls down the line that he just can't make a play on because of his fielding abilities, I don't know if that's going to come back to bite him or not.
Well, I think in that case, you're going to have to shift a lot.
Right.
With your other guys, you're going to have to shift a lot to take a lot of that fielding pressure off of him.
I know Ian's going to disagree with me, but it'll be fun to see the Red Sox have to play real baseball instead of this AL thing with the DH.
And especially not even Ortiz. It's what's they're going to do with. I mean, because the Cardinals pitchers, they, for the most part, they know how to sacrifice bunt and move runners over and do that stuff. The Red Sox don't do that a whole lot because they're in the AL. So, I mean, maybe the series is decided by something like that the Red Sox pitcher can't get a bunt down to get the guy to second base. It's going to be interesting. I really love interleague play in this time of year because, I mean, you just got to be on your A game. And I'm just going to ask you this as a Red Sox fan because this is just this is my opinion. I don't want to call it luck, but, I mean, how lucky are the Red Sox with those 2 grand slams? I mean, I know it's not luck because you hit the ball out of the stadium. It's just they always seem to be in those situations.
The thing is about it, though, is that you hit the grand slam, and yeah, that's great, but nobody ever talks about the at-bats that lead up to the grand slam.
Right, I mean...
Those are where it really starts to build. You know, you catch a walk here or there. You get a clutch base hit up the middle. You get a fair call.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not disagreeing with on those. It just always seems that or a home run or something.
Yeah.
You know, they always seem to. I mean,
and the thing is,
that's great though.
That's what great teams do.
Exactly.
Great teams do that when their backs are against the wall. They always seem to come up with the biggest at bats in the biggest situations, and these are 2 of the best teams in the league at doing that.
And how about, I mean, like that photo is so great with the police officer not even caring about Torrey Hunter falling over the wall. He's just too excited to even know what to do in that picture.
Yeah, and I want to touch on something real quick that was in the ALCS. What did you guys think of Leland's decision to pull Scherzer? I mean, Ian, do you know who hit that? Who they hit the grand slam off of? Just by chance?
Joaquin Benoit.
Yeah, Joaquin Benoit.
No, not that one. The last one.
The last one.
I am
Jose Barris.
Jose Barris.
They
pulled Scherzer for somebody else. I can't think of the guy's name. He only faced the batter, and then they put in Jose.
But the thing is, you gotta think it's again back to those at bats that have led up to that. Scherzer hadn't looked that great, and you had to start thinking in Leland's mind that maybe the fatigue's starting to get
But
to
no,
him.
but did you see him in relief in the Oakland series where he loaded the bases with no outs and got out of it? I mean,
I think Leland was probably just playing matchups more than anything,
Right.
because Victorino, as much as he's professed as a switch hitter,
right,
he's a
right.
he's
He's
a
like
left.
he's like the Neil
right-handed
Walker of the.
Right.
batter.
I mean that's always Detroit's problem. They have such a great team. They have such a great lineup. Their starting
Their
pitching's
bullpen's
phenomenal, and their bullpen's horrible. I mean,
We're talking about a guy who didn't even he got cut from the Pirates in like July and found his way on a postseason roster.
I don't know how that happens.
I'm just saying it's.
Ian, your prediction for the series?
So you really need to ask me my prediction?
I want to know how many games you think it's going to go.
I'm going to pick the Red Sox in 6. I'm going to
Okay.
take Boston in 6.
Pains me to say this.
Don't say it then.
No, because I think I like the Cardinals in 6 games. Michael Wacha and Adam Wainwright, they're just, especially Wacha, because I mean he can win you 2 games on his
I mean,
own.
the thing for me is, I think Boston has to survive the first 2 starts from Wainwright and Walker, and then
Right.
get to guys like Lance Lynn and the
Yeah.
back 3 of that.
Well,
of that
I don't know
starting
how.
rotation.
I mean, I don't know if you'll see Lance Lynn.
I'm pretty sure he's going to be the game 4 starter if I remember right.
Yeah.
He was in the bullpen and a couple other series. I'm just saying though with the.
And he don't discount Lance Lynn.
I mean,
he's not the greatest,
Yeah.
and you can definitely score off of him. But I mean, he'll go out there every now and then, and he'll dominate. He's good. He just needs to find his consistency. It's going to be a great series.
It is.
And I think though, if the Cardinals can find a way to win 1 of 2 in Boston, I think the Red Sox are in trouble because St. Louis plays really well at home. I mean, Boston plays well at their home too.
I mean, you got to think the Red Sox are a team that is built to hit and win at Fenway Park.
Yeah,
That's
right.
the way they're built.
So-
That's the way they've always been built.
So
So when you take them out of that environment, I don't know what it's going to be.
that's I'm taking Cardinals in 6. Let's move on.
All right, let's move on to college football. First BCS rankings came out this week. No real big surprises. You could be surprised
I
that
was
Florida State
surprised.
jumped Oregon.
I was
I
surprised
could be
about that.
I could be surprised that
Missouri.
Missouri.
There's some.
I
big
mean,
stuff.
they're an undefeated SEC team, though. I mean,
I want to
you
say
know the computers are gonna love an undefeated SEC team,
not as much as they love an undefeated Ohio State team.
but
Just
not
wait
as
till
much.
later on in
Not
the
as
season.
much as they. Speaking of Ohio State, coming off the win against Iowa, really just got dominated up front in the first half. They made the necessary halftime adjustments though, and they dominated the second half to a 10-point win. Night game this week against Penn State. Penn State is looking really good this year. They've got a couple losses, but Bill O'Brien really has them going in the right direction, and it's really awesome to see them play just for the joy of the game. I mean, they're not winning anything, they're not going anywhere, but they go out every Saturday and they play like it's their national championship game, and they could have that kind of attitude Saturday night. I mean, they're not going to play a bigger game this season than a primetime game in the Horseshoe against an undefeated Ohio State team. So what's your early thoughts about this one, Ian?
I'm hoping that a lot of the trends that have led up to this game continue. Ohio State all time is 9-3 in home games at Ohio Stadium.
They've only played 12 games at Ohio Stadium.
Night games.
Ah,
I said night games.
He did say night games.
I didn't hear him say that.
Doing
I
what he
said night
does.
games. but
I mean, their last loss had to been against USC a couple years ago, Ian.
that was the last
Mhm.
night game that they lost at Ohio Stadium.
Demolished.
Stats, son.
Stats. Numbers never lie. But a fun little factoid that I kind of found is in 6 of the last 11 Ohio State Penn State games, an Ohio State defensive back has gotten a pick 6. And in those 6 games, Ohio State has won every single one of those. So the key to winning this week is simple. Get a pick 6. You'll win.
The key to getting a pick 6 is Bradley Roby not getting ejected from this game.
For absolute garbage, but I'm going to touch on that later. But
Penn State, I've got a couple little facts on them. They're led by a freshman quarterback, Hackenberg. He's looked pretty decent this year. He doesn't have a lot of yards, but he has 11 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. They have a two-headed running attack with Zach Zwinnick and Bill Belton. They've combined for 762 yards and 11 touchdowns. Decent numbers. I mean, together they look pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And their leading receiver is Allen Robinson with 705 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's really the go-to guy for everything. Third downs, big plays. He's been there all year for them. And, of course, Penn State's going to be really good on defense. Linebacker U, as they like to call themselves. What do you think about this game, Cody?
Well, I think the key for Ohio State this weekend is they can't put themselves in a big hole going into halftime. The last 2 games, they've outscored their opponents in the second half. I mean, they've only given up 1 touchdown in the second half against Northwestern and Iowa. And they put, I think, 3 touchdowns or a little more than 3 touchdowns in each of those games up in the second half. But you can't put yourself in a hole because you're not always going to do that. The key for this game for me, I got 2 keys really. Actually, a couple keys. One, Braxton Miller, he needs to continue. You're seeing him. I think he's more healthy than he's ever been. I think his first couple games back, he was still a little hurt. I mean, he's running the ball well. I mean, he's throwing. He was slinging the ball all game against Iowa. I mean, the offense really wasn't the problem against Iowa. Yeah. And another key, speaking on the offense, is Carlos Hyde. I mean,
what a beast.
In the second half of the last 2 games, he has 5 touchdowns in 2 games in the second half. 3 against Northwestern and then 2 against Iowa. And I mean, his touchdown run where he broke 2 tackles, lost his balance, went back 4 yards, came back, ran, and dove over a guy for the end zone was just, I mean, that's what you see on Sundays. And you don't really see somebody like that on Sundays too often.
And you don't see guys that big do that too often.
No. And I like, Ian, I like the fact that Urban's starting to use all of our running backs again. You kind of saw, you didn't see much of Wilson the last couple games. Yeah. He was back, and he made a couple plays with his pure speed.
I think the best thing about that is that now Braxton Miller has a dedicated, really good ground attack behind him.
Yes.
That he doesn't need to tuck the ball and run with it all the time.
And he looked better this game with holding on to the ball.
Yes, he did. So. And another big thing is how much he's developed in his passing game. Because you remember from his freshman year to now how inconsistent he was in the passing game to how great he looks in the passing game now.
How much of that, though, do you have to place on now defensive coordinator
Fickell?
Luke Fickell.
I don't think if Trussell was still there that year, he still would have been inconsistent. But he was 18 years old.
Yeah.
He has to mature in the college game, but I don't really think Fickell gave him the opportunity to. I remember the Illinois game, they opened with like 20 straight runs.
Yeah.
I mean, they were running the ball well, but I mean, when you go 3 and out and you run, it can get a little frustrating. I mean, you have to let him flourish. That's what he came here to do.
And I think another big key in this game is the Ohio State defense. They were just flat out dominated. That defensive line was dominated by Iowa. I mean, it was embarrassing to the point they only ran like 6 or 7 different plays. It seemed like that. I mean, I was picking up on, and they just kept running them over and over again. And in Ohio State, you can't be taking stupid penalties. That Bradley Roby call, some want to say it's controversial.
Controversial about the ejection, I think.
Well, no, there's no controversy in the ejection, BJ, because that's the rule. I think we more have I think it's all fair. Let's say we all have a problem with the rule of being ejected more than the penalty. Ian,
I think that
is it fair to say?
My problem with it is that it's a judgment call.
Yes,
that's my problem with it. Not the ejection, but the call itself. Because what is the exact definition of that rule? Does anybody know the exact definition?
I'm pretty sure it's if you leap from your body.
And make head-to-head contact.
And if you leap from your body and lead with the head, it's considered targeting.
Now let's analyze Bradley Roby's hit. Did he ever leave his feet?
Yes.
Yes, he
No,
did.
he did
Yes,
not.
he
He was
did.
on his toes.
And he leaped.
He
To
was
the-
on
to
his
a
toes.
certain extent.
He was on his toes. He never left the ground. So all again, that depends on how you define a leap or that.
Okay.
Right.
Then
I'm with you. I'm
leading with
you.
the helmet. Now, if I go like that to a guy, what am I leading with? I'm always leading with my helmet. You can't not lead with your helmet. That's the problem with this rule, is that it all depends on a referee's perspective of a play.
Now, am I right in saying this? That is it the referees that are in the booth upstairs that make the call on the ejection? Or is it
the
people
referees
down
on the
below?
field throw the flag.
Okay.
And then they review the hit to determine whether or not the ejection stands.
Because this is probably the first time someone's been ejected, or a major player, right?
I've seen the call
first
come up.
time in an Ohio State game that a player has been ejected by this move.
I've seen the call in a couple other games.
Right.
And I disagreed with it every single time, but
it's all stemming back though to making the game safer. Whether you agree with it, that's what it is.
I understand that, but the thing is, if you're going to do that, you have to have a clear-cut definition of the rule.
And this is what I think, Ian. I know it's hard to. The speed of the game is quick, but you got to change how you play the game. You see people in the NFL.
Ndamukong Suh.
And Merriweather, who's been suspended 2 games. I know, but you just got to be smarter than that.
Yeah,
I understand it'll happen.
I'm not taking anything. I'm not saying that Bradley Roby should have never put himself in a position to not even have that call put on him, because you shouldn't ever have to put yourself in that position to begin with. But the thing that I have a problem with is that there's no clear-cut definition of that rule.
Right, and this probably won't be the last time we're talking.
No, it won't be, because it's just going to keep coming up. And what happens when it comes up in a big game with a key player like that? Ohio State, Iowa, it's a big game, but it's not a huge game. Now, what happens if that comes up in a bowl game or a conference title game or a national title game?
And to your point, what was big about it for that game was the fact that we were already out a DB.
Yeah.
Because,
and that's an All-American corner that you're
Christian
losing
Bryant,
in that game.
Exactly. That's what the big deal was.
That's an All-American corner.
Then we had a
really
sophomore and a
you
freshman
really have
playing.
to compliment Duran Grant. He played really well after the ejection. What do you think you're going to see? Predictions for this week?
I could see it going two ways. I know there's only 2 ways to go, but I could see it being a classic Ohio State-Penn State 13-6 game. But I think the offenses are just a little better than what the defenses are. I think Ohio State wins this one 34-24. I don't think it'll be close. I think it'll be close, but I don't think it'll be to the point where Penn State's actually on the verge of upsetting.
I think you're going to see what you saw the past couple of weeks when Ohio State's played good teams. They'll hang around in the first half, and in a couple of cases like Northwestern and Iowa, they'll actually lead in the first half going into halftime. And then in the second half, after Urban Meyer really just chews them out in the locker room, they'll come out more focused, because they really aren't coming out focused these past couple of weeks, it seems like. It seems like it takes them till halftime to get going. I'd like to see that happen, or not see that happen, but I think it'll happen again. And then I think with halftime adjustments, I like Ohio State to win this game 31-17 after trailing 21-10 at half.
Oh, I think you see a return of the great Silver Bullet defense this week.
That would be nice.
I think the offense continues its level of high play. I just don't see any reason for them to slow down this week. Penn State's been good, but not great on defense this year in my eyes. They're susceptible to big plays just like any team is. I think the Silver Bullet defense gets back to its form. I like Ohio State in this one, 38-17.
I like it. Okay, let's move on to really just not that appealing of a matchup in the Big 12. 3-4 West Virginia squad going into Kansas State at 2-4 team. These were 2 teams that, for the most part, in the early season at least with West Virginia, really kind of considered themselves national title contenders last year. Kansas State, obviously, with losing Colin Klein, he was that team last year. Both teams have really struggled this year. Cody, do you really expect anything interesting to happen in this game, or are West Virginia fans just gonna get a little self-esteem boost?
I I don't think you can really say that. I think Kansas State's a little better than what their 2-4 record indicates. In their losses, they lost. I mean, yeah, they lost to North Dakota State in the opener in a shocker, but
Yeah.
that's just an upset. North Dakota State's a good team.
They consistently win the 1AA title.
Yeah,
It's
they're at least in the game. It's
right,
them and Sam Houston State
right.
every year.
It's not like some lowly like
wasn't-
West Liberty style
It wasn't
team
Appalachian. It wasn't
Right.
Appalachian State and Michigan.
No.
But I mean,
And
then-
Appalachian State's even a pretty good team at that
Right,
level
right.
at that time.
Right.
So
But I
that's
mean,
not as bad a loss as it seems.
right. I mean, in their other losses, 31-21 to Texas, 10-point game. 33-29 Oklahoma State, that's a close game. 35-25 Baylor, that's a close
That's
game.
impressive,
impressive.
holding them to 35 points.
That's
So,
really impressive.
I mean, yes, they're 2-4, but I mean, they've been in most of their
They
games
have.
they've played. So and it's at Kansas State. I don't think West Virginia wins this one.
Looking at some stats for the Mountaineers, their quarterback play has been split between Clint Trickett and Paul Millard. Neither has really impressed. They've gone back and forth. Trickett's got the last couple starts. Their running game really hasn't been there. Charles Sims was their leading rusher coming into this year. He's leading them again, but doesn't even have 600 yards yet. He hasn't really. But in most of their games, they've had to throw the ball because they're trailing. But probably the biggest stat that I think is most interesting, their two leading receivers this year, Carswell and Kevin White, have a combined 669 yards and 5 touchdowns. Those two combined are on pace to tie Tavon Austin's production from last season. One player, two players. So they just haven't looked good offensively, and of course they've been bad defensively again because Dana Holgerson's their coach. They've been giving up 28.5 points per game. If you take away William and Mary and Georgia State, they're giving up 35 points per game. So just really bad all around. Like you said, Kansas State hasn't looked terrible in their losses. I mean, 4 losses isn't good for a college team, but they've looked at least competitive. So I'm with you on this one. I'm going to take the Wildcats at home. I'm really sorry, West Virginia fans. I wouldn't wish this on anyone.
The key for West Virginia is going to be they're going to have to get off to a better start than they have out of the gate. I mean, just take a look at these numbers. In the first quarter this year, they've been outscored by a combined 59-45. In the second quarter of their games, they've been outscored by a combined 71-24
That's not
in the
good.
second quarter of their games this year. In the third quarter, they're only getting outscored 24-20 combined. And in the fourth quarter, they're actually outscoring teams 55-17. They just have to get off to a better start. They can't trail early. They can't fall behind and have to play catch up for the entire game. Because, like you said,
That's what they did last week.
they don't have a great running game because they can't utilize a running game because they got to throw the ball all the time.
And Charles Sims is a really good running back.
He is. He's not a bad running back. They just can't utilize him because they have to play from behind all the time. I think if West Virginia gets out to a good start, they win this game. And I think they win it easily. But I don't see them getting out to a good start. This team just spins its wheels on offense consistently. And I like Kansas State in this game. Just because I don't trust the West Virginia offense. Never in my life did I think I'd say that. I don't trust the West Virginia offense enough to give them a chance to win this game. I don't.
Okay, let's move on to a MAC matchup. This is probably our biggest doing what they do of all time.
So far.
We said that Miami and Ohio played last week. They did not. Ohio beat Eastern Michigan 56-28. Looked really good.
Can I just talk about how impressive that win was for Ohio and how proud I am of the Eastern Michigan football team for really getting together and playing that game after everything that happened up there on campus. I know, and I probably speak for all of us when I say that our hearts and prayers go out to the family of that young man who was slain senselessly. But just for Ohio to go in there and then to give up a kickoff return on the opening kickoff for a touchdown, you got to figure that, oh boy, here comes the emotion. And then Ohio really rallied and found a way to win in what was a very emotional situation. And that just speaks to the leadership of that team.
Yeah, and I think Ohio did look pretty good. You're right. There's always, when there's something like a tragedy like that happens, there's always the emotion and the rally behind factor, and usually you see teams win those kind of games. So that's really good to see for Ohio. But still, the rushing defense didn't look good for another week.
But the thing is, Bronson Hill is not your average running back. Bronson Hill is an unbelievable
he's
running
good,
back.
but I mean yes, he's good, but I mean he's not the only one that's done it against the Ohio defense. So that's what's more concerning. I get when you got one of those running backs that'll probably be playing on Sunday.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Bronson Hill's been the only reliable offensive weapon that Eastern Michigan's had all season.
Right.
But I mean,
it stems previous from that. Yeah. So last podcast we talked about Miami and Ohio. So if you guys want to hear our thoughts on that,
it's probably about the 30-minute mark.
Yeah, go back.
All you really need to know is Miami's 0-7. Ohio has only lost 2 games, only lost 1 MAC game. Expect Ohio to go out there and beat the living crap out of them. It's a rivalry game, and they hate Miami.
And one last thing that I'm going to just throw out there. It's a ghost out Saturday. Haunt Miami. Wear white if you're going. Ohio unveiled brand new, ridiculously nice jerseys for this game. If you're going to Athens for Halloween this weekend, I recommend you stop over. It's a 2 o'clock kickoff. Stop over to the game. Watch Ohio beat the living hell out of Miami.
And then
go drink, have a fantastic time. I wish I could be there with all of you. I really do. But yeah, I don't expect this game to be close at all. I really don't.
Let's move on to a interesting matchup. I think in the Big 12 with Texas Tech going to Oklahoma. I say interesting because Texas Tech. I mean, who saw this? Who saw this with a rookie head coach? I mean, we will really find out. I think this is one of the weeks where we really find out how good this undefeated team is, because so far, I mean, they haven't really played that. I mean, they played well, but this is probably their first big matchup of the season in terms of testing, because you're going to Oklahoma and playing. Yeah. Oklahoma on this year, they've had a couple impressive wins. They beat Notre Dame. But
the impressive part of that Notre Dame was that they beat Notre Dame on the road.
Right.
It was at
Notre Dame.
Still, when you beat Notre, I don't care.
There's still an allure about beating Notre Dame, even though it's a down year.
Well, their defense is still really good.
Yes, they are.
I mean,
if they had Everett Golson, they would probably be in national title contention again.
They'd be in the
this
top
year.
10, I think. I mean, with Lance Nix the third, I mean, that's a good defense.
Tommy Reese is not a great quarterback.
Right.
Brandon Whedon's twin.
But I think what's the deal with Oklahoma? I mean, they look at the beginning of the year, there wasn't a whole lot. I mean, nobody was really looking at them. Then they started playing well, and then they just lose to Texas, which I did call, but I'm just saying.
Well, it's just classic Bob Stoops.
Is that
big game Bob?
Yeah.
I mean, he's gonna get.
But it wasn't even a big game. I mean, it's a rivalry, but still, it wasn't like
right. Well,
it was a matchup of top 5 teams.
He's gonna get the talent into Oklahoma. He's really gonna put a good team on the field. But he always seems to get players that just don't know how to perform in the clutch. I mean, this year, their quarterback situation, Blake Bell, has looked good, but not great. They really thought they had something in Trevor Knight, and he got benched within the first couple games. I don't really see them as a top 15 team. I think this is more name recognition than anything. I know they only have 1 loss, but this is more of a name recognition thing. But like you said, I mean, this is where you really see if Texas Tech's legit. I mean, this is probably going to be their toughest game of the year. I mean, who else in the Big 12 is going to challenge them? except Baylor.
There you go. I'm like, at least he mentioned it. I was gonna say Baylor's.
But I mean, if
I'd still throw Oklahoma State in there even as a possible team to
You never
kinda
know.
throw 'em
Oklahoma
off.
State,
They're inconsistent,
right?
but you
But
never
they,
know.
I mean, they could step up and beat Texas Tech. But this is probably going to be their tough. I mean, you just think Oklahoma on the road. That's probably going to be one of their toughest games of the year with the Baylor game. So I mean, you're really going to see what Texas Tech's made of, except the Ryan Gosling lookalike coach.
Hey, guns up. But Texas Tech. Let me just start out by saying this. Do you think, going back to that Oklahoma-Texas thing, because that's the one thing that everybody wants to point on Oklahoma, do you think that maybe, and I understand that it's a rivalry game and that it's Oklahoma-Texas and it's all that, Texas at that point in time was a really easy team to overlook because of how bad they had played up to that point.
And hey, Texas, they're 3-0 in the Big 12. I mean, they got
Yeah.
their 2 losses out of conference.
Yeah.
So they're right in the running as well with it.
And you
so.
got to think, I mean, there's been a lot of talk swirling around Mac Brown. Oh, should he retire? Because they're not going to fire the guy. But there's a lot of talk of, oh, should he retire? Should we just offer him like an AD position to just get him out of that coaching position? So, I mean, like, his guys really had to rally for him. And to take down Oklahoma, I mean, that's pretty big for Texas.
That was a big win for them. But I'm just saying, do you think there was any chance that maybe Oklahoma just was overlooking
Maybe.
Texas in
I mean,
that
that's
game?
easy to do because
I mean,
they
it was
say,
easy to do because to
hey,
that
Texas,
point
Texas, exactly.
they hadn't looked that
Trap
great
game.
up to that point.
Trap game.
And I understand that it's a rivalry game and all that, but you have to think that maybe they were overlooking.
But that rivalry hasn't really been that great
Yeah,
since Colt
that's
McCoy and Sam Bradford have been there.
And that's the thing too, is that in the previous few years, Oklahoma had gone into that game and just absolutely smacked
Take
the
them to the
hell
woodshed.
out of Texas.
Absolutely.
It was never even competitive in any of those games.
Okay, so
But what I'm saying is that maybe that Texas loss wasn't as bad as everybody wants to make it out to be. I like Oklahoma in this game.
Okay.
I do. I like Oklahoma in this game, and I'm happy and I'm glad to see what Cliff Kingsbury has done with Texas Tech. But I like Oklahoma at home in this game.
Okay,
Hey,
but
let
do
me,
you think this is probably this just doesn't feel like a top 15 matchup? I mean, you think of a
Yeah.
top 15 matchup, you go, oh, this has BCS implications, BCS title implications. But I mean, it
BCS.
just doesn't really
BCS.
feel like it
BCS,
does. I
right.
mean,
yeah.
it just feels like the Big 12 is going to send a team to a BCS bowl, and unless it's Baylor, who can just put up a lot of points,
What
I
if
don't
they-
know. I mean,
What if they play the automatic qualifier in Northern Illinois? See? They could
Mhm.
take them to the woodshed.
no,
No.
That was a joke because Northern Illinois looked really well this
Really
year.
good.
Let me throw this out. This is the remaining schedule for Texas Tech at Oklahoma. Win or lose? Just your initial thought.
I'm going to go with win.
I'm
Okay.
going to lose.
At home to Oklahoma State.
I'm going to go with win. I mean, an inconsistent team, you should beat them at home is really just kind of my thought on that.
I'm just saying that's 2 big games in a row.
I'll go lose again.
All right. At home to Kansas State.
Win.
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 On the road at Baylor.
Lose.
I'm going to go with lose.
And then on the road at Texas.
Win.
Lose.
See, I mean, you have Oklahoma State, Oklahoma State, Baylor, Texas left on your schedule.
I mean, those
So
are 4 of
if-
the top 5 teams in your
If
conference.
they win out, I mean, I'm not going to put them in a national championship game, but rightfully so deserving of a BCS bid, I would think.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I think the Big 12 is a little down this year, but you go on the road and beat Texas, Oklahoma, and then Baylor in one season, you're doing something
right.
Okay.
Let's move on to another matchup that has pretty big BCS implications on it. UCLA, coming off the loss to Stanford, goes to Oregon, who's just been steamrolling everybody this year. Ian, some opening thoughts on this one?
Because I'm an Ohio State fan, I've been picking against Oregon the last couple
Right.
of weeks because I want them to lose, and they've just absolutely whitewashed whoever they come up against. So this week I'm going to pick Oregon
Hoping they lose.
in the hopes that it
I
will
like it.
reverse it and
Okay.
they lose, and we can finally talk about
Ohio State.
Ohio State
Yes.
as a national title contender, which
Mhm.
they are. But UCLA bounce back week. This is it. You gotta go. You gotta go prove that you are one of the elite teams in this conference. You had an opportunity to prove it a week ago. You couldn't do it. This is your week. You gotta go take down the big dogs. You gotta go take down the team that has run this conference the last few years. Because this is their toughest remaining game. I mean, this is it. This is it. I mean, who else is gonna
Stanford.
They,
At Stanford?
No, I'm talking about UCLA here.
Okay.
I'm talking about
I
UCLA.
Okay, I got you. I was gonna say Oregon's got some teams coming.
I'm talking about UCLA in this case. This is their toughest remaining game.
And what benefits UCLA is they're in the South Division.
Yeah.
And who's behind them? Arizona State. So I mean, Oregon has Stanford behind them. They have
Washington behind them.
Washington. They have Oregon State, who's undefeated in conference play behind them. So they definitely are in the tougher conference. So UCLA can find a way to win. But what concerns me, though, Ian, is, I mean, I think Stanford has a good defense.
Yeah.
They just didn't put points on the board.
No.
And you got to put points on the board to beat Oregon.
Right. I mean, that was the biggest thing with UCLA last week. I mean, 3 points, your biggest game of the year. We're going to prove that UCLA is back. And they're well on their way. I mean, they're a really good team.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you put up 3 points. It's not that impressive. And against Oregon,
I thought it was 24-10.
They had a late touchdown. You're right. It was 24-10.
They
had
3
a late
points
touchdown. The majority of the game.
Right.
They got a late touchdown.
Yeah.
But against Oregon, it's not going to get it done. I mean,
and
for the most part,
it's in Autzen Stadium. So
I mean, and most of the year, Oregon's have their backups play the majority of the second half because they've put so many points on the board. So I really want UCLA to take this game. Like Ian said, as an Ohio State fan, you really just got to root for Oregon and Florida State to lose. But this isn't the week that Oregon loses. I don't really think this game's going to be that close. I expect it to be like a 56-24 kind of game.
Yeah.
UCLA, though they're well on their way back, this isn't it. It's not going to be this week. Oregon's going to take them to the woodshed.
Yeah, I mean, this would be a great win for Jim Mora if he could find a way to pull us off. I just want to go back to Oregon's schedule, though, so far. I mean, their offenses look good putting points on the board. But, I mean, they really haven't played the good part of their schedule yet.
Yeah.
I mean, they played
Nicholls State.
Nicholls State. Then they played at Virginia. Then they played Tennessee. They played Cal at Colorado. The last 2 games, though, they played at Washington, Washington's on. They're getting better. They're not there yet. And they played at home against Washington State, which, I mean, they can put points on the board. They're not a good defensive team, but they got a good quarterback up there. But this is the part of the schedule that, if I'm Oregon, this is really if you find out how good you are, because, I mean, you play UCLA at home, then you go to at Stanford, then you have Utah at home, who beat Stanford. I mean, then you go to at Arizona, who's looked better this year, and then you got the Civil War rivalry against Oregon State.
Who's looked good this year? Like only
one
loss on the season.
But it is at Oregon, so there's some chances if they slip up, if they're not on their A game, they could lose one of those games.
Do you think it'll be this week though?
I think it's going to be a little closer. I don't know if. I think UCLA will be in a position to win this game. I don't know if they will, because they really came out, and whether you like it or not, I think they got embarrassed last week against Stanford. They were supposed to come out, so I think this week they're going to come out looking like they got something to prove. I mean, maybe it works early, but I mean, man, that Oregon team with Mariota and Anthony Thomas, I think the offense there is going to be a little too much. I think I like Oregon in this one, 45-38. I mean, I think it's going to be a good game, but I don't think this is the win Jim Mora is looking for just yet.
All right, let's move on to a top 25 SEC matchup.
Surprise.
South Carolina Gamecocks got a couple losses on the year, haven't really lived up to expectations so far. Are going to a really, really surprising Missouri team, undefeated so far. And like the polls will, if you're in the SEC and you're undefeated, you're going to be in the top 5 in the BCS polls. Missouri's looked really good this year, but they did lose their starting quarterback James Franklin a couple weeks ago. He looked really good this year too. He had 1,500 passing yards, 14 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. On an interesting note, he's being replaced by Matty Mock from Kenton, Ohio. Mr. Ohio football last year. He looked pretty good last week in the game against Florida. Not great, but he looked pretty good. So I mean, what do you think you'll see this week? Do you think South Carolina is really just going to go in there and show that Missouri's not legit, or do you think that Missouri just keeps on beating good SEC teams?
I like Missouri in this game. I really do, and it's not because I don't think Missouri's that good. I think it's just that I don't trust South Carolina that much.
Think
No.
they're a bit overrated.
I think they are highly overrated.
Well, I don't think.
I think that
At
they're
21, I don't
they're-
know how overrated you
well,
are now,
But I think
before
their preseason ranking was based on everyone's man crush on Jadeveon Clowney, which was based on one hit.
Well, they got. I mean, they had Connor Shaw coming back. I mean, he's been battling injuries. I mean, preseason, I didn't mind their preseason rank, but I mean, yeah, they just haven't looked good this year, though. I mean, I think they're really missing Lattimore.
Yeah.
I mean, he wouldn't have been here anyway because he was hurt. But I mean, to lose to Tennessee, I mean, they've been close a couple times this year, but
It puts into perspective though how good Oregon is, because Tennessee's been in every SEC game they played this year, and Oregon took them to the woodshed.
they did. What's interesting though is that Missouri has a 2-game lead over South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia in the SEC East. So I mean, if they can
And the loss column.
in the loss column, yeah, so which is what matters.
Right.
So I mean, if they can find a way to win this game and put South Carolina at 3-3, their season's pretty much over now. But there's a glimmer if they win this game against Mizzou. But I mean, I don't think Missouri's missed. They really haven't missed a beat with their backup quarterback in.
It's not like you're going from, say, like a Braxton Miller to a Joe Bowserman. Like you're going from Franklin to Mr. Ohio football, and Ohio is a really rich, talented high school football state. So I mean, that's a pretty legit award to win. I expect Missouri to win this game. I expect them to keep rolling. I think there's going to be a really big showdown in the SEC title game with them and Alabama. I think with the 2-game lead in the loss column, it just kind of puts them in really good position.
The thing that really helps them with that 2-game lead is that they have beaten
The
If
two
they
teams.
win-
They
if
have
win this
beaten
week-
South Carolina and Florida.
and Georgia.
And
They
Georgia.
beat Georgia last week.
Yes.
They've
Right.
beaten Florida, and if they win on
Or
Saturday,
if they win this Saturday,
they
they'll
will
beat
beat
South
South
Carolina.
It's
Carolina.
pretty
too.
much virtual. They didn't have to
Right.
lose out in the
Mhm.
SEC. But just let me throw this out here. In Mizzou, they're on a roll right now. I mean, their first couple games were the cupcake games, but I mean they went to Vandy and they beat Vanderbilt, who just pulled off an upset last week. They went to Georgia and beat them. They took care of business against Florida. They took care of business, and they're looking to take care of business against South Carolina. Then they have a home game against Tennessee. So, I mean, Tennessee's been playing better. I mean, then they have Kentucky, probably beat Kentucky. But then they go to at Ole Miss, who you don't know what you're going to get with Ole Miss because they looked horrible. Well, their offense looked horrible against Alabama. But then their offense looked really, really good against LSU. So you really don't know what you're going to get with Ole Miss. And then they finished the season at home against Texas A&M.
Mhm.
But what the major thing is, though, minus South Carolina, A&M's in the other conference. So even if they lose to A&M, it's not going to affect them that much. I mean, if they take care of business here, they can all but lock up their
SEC.
the championship, and they'll be on their way to the Georgia Dome, the probably play Alabama, we would assume.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people kind of skeptical that the BCS they went from 14 clear up to 5. This is the game that's going to get. This is a game that gets those people off your back because I mean I think they deserve a top 5 ranking. I mean
Absolutely.
when you beat Georgia, Florida, Vanderbilt, I mean when you beat I'll even put this when you beat Georgia and Florida in the same season, let alone back to back, you should probably be.
You're a good football team.
And it's not like those teams are down this year. I mean, they're still. I mean, they are to an extent, but they're still
Florida's
a good.
kind of injury riddled, but I mean, Georgia's a good team.
So.
All right, let's move on to the NFL. Steelers coming off an impressive one against the Ravens. Just kind of a classic Steelers-Ravens game.
Absolutely.
Going all the way out to the West Coast to play the Oakland Raiders. The Raiders have won a couple games. They've looked decent. In their wins, they've looked decent, but in their losses, they've looked like the Raiders have the past decade since the Super Bowl. They thought they caught lightning in a bottle with Terrell Pryor. He's looked good this year, but the biggest concern for them regarding Terrell Pryor is he's their leading rusher. Your quarterback should not be your leading rusher, especially in the NFL. The Steelers really should go in there and take care of business. They've played a lot better the past couple of weeks. In their first 4 games, which they lost all of them, they had a -10 turnover differential. In the past couple of weeks, they had a +1. And that's really the key for them. If they take care of the ball, they win. They should have won at least 2 of those 4 games that they lost at the beginning of the season, but because of their turnover problems, they just kind of handed the game away to the other teams. But like I said, I expect really for them to just go out there and take care of business. The Raiders have beaten them the past 2 meetings last year and in 2009. But I don't expect that to happen. Terrell Pryor is basically a rookie. Dick LeBeau loves rookie quarterbacks. Terrell Pryor has proven, like he did at Ohio State, that he's inconsistent. He's indecisive. The biggest thing for him this week is probably going to be just try to run away from all the pressure he's going to face. So just looks like the Steelers are going to take care of business. They're not back yet. They're on their way. They take care of business this week. They're sitting at 3-4, and in the AFC this year, that's not too terrible.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say on this game, but I will say this, that they finally got something together on the ground. They finally put things together in the rushing game. Le'Veon Bell had 93 rushing yards in the game against Baltimore. That is the most rushing yards that a Pittsburgh Steelers running back has had in a game since Week 8 of last year. His 93 yards this season are more than any other Pittsburgh running back has totaled up to that point for the entire season this year.
Brutal.
Running the ball, they got to get back to this Pittsburgh Steelers run the football kind of team. They have to. As much as we want to talk about all turnovers and forced turnovers and all this other stuff, you got to run the football because that's where it starts with this team. It has to start with a dominant physical running game.
And I don't know if it's the point of getting back to quote-unquote the Steeler way with smash mouth football. I think if they can just do what they did last week and just be able to make you not, make them,
you honest on defense.
They got to make you respect the run, and that's what they did last week. If they did get back to this Steeler football, that'd be great because I like watching it. I mean, I think the league's kind of going in a different direction at this time with all these spread offense and stuff.
They are, but think of who the one undefeated team is. The Chiefs, who play smash mouth football with Jamal Charles.
True. But, I mean, and it just opened up the passing game. Ian, did you watch the game? Did you see a little bit of it?
I watched bits and
Okay.
pieces of the game.
They ran the Wildcat with
Mhm.
Le'Veon Bell.
Yep.
I mean, and it was working.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like they did it one time to get a first down. They ran it a couple series and it got yards. I don't know if Bell just all of a sudden came up with this stutter step move, but he added a stutter step to his game that I haven't seen out of him. I mean, maybe at Michigan State a couple times, but I mean he was patient, he was waiting, and he hit the holes. I mean, and let's credit the offensive line who played better this week. Ben still took a couple hits, but I mean they were driving people off the ball. I think David DeCastro is quietly becoming one of the better guards, new guards, up and coming guards in the game. I mean, I'm not gonna call him a Pro Bowler yet, but I mean he's getting there, and that's what the Steelers drafted him for. But more importantly, the Steelers' defense looked good again this week. They got some pressure on Flacco. They didn't have the sacks and the turnovers like they did against the Jets, but I mean, Ray Rice couldn't run the ball at all. I mean, he's been a disappointment the last 2 seasons if you're a Ravens fan. Flacco
Flacco got off to a slow start in that game.
Yes.
And then later on, as the game went on,
Yeah,
he
that
really
last-
started to
his-
find
his
his thing.
last
The
drive-
problem with him is, outside of Torrey Smith,
Who do they have?
there's nothing
No,
for
He,
him.
try,
he has no
he
help.
tries to make Dallas Clark his security blanket, but Dallas Clark is way past his prime. Ian, what you were saying about the running game and what Cody said about the offensive line, I mean, those just go hand in hand. The offensive line looked like they couldn't block a pack of Girl Scouts the first 4 weeks. They had no running game. The defense didn't have to be honest with the run game. They knew they could just play the pass because they knew Roethlisberger was going to have to drop back. But that's really improved Le'Veon Bell. He looks like a guy who was deserving of a second-round pick. I know personally I was really upset when they took him. Eddie Lacy was still on the board. I saw Lacy as really one of the best running backs in the draft. But Le'Veon Bell has looked really good. It just really goes back to the offensive line. Like you said, DeCastro is really starting to live up to that first-round pick. Some people were starting to whisper bust. Not ready to say it yet, but there are whispers. But, I mean,
He's been playing well. And the play calling, I don't know if it's Ben going to Todd Haley and like having a list of plays he's wanting to run, but that offense is nothing what the Todd Haley offense has looked. I mean, it's like completely different. I mean, a shovel pass, you send the tight end in motion and you flip him the ball for a touchdown. I mean, that's not Todd Haley offense right there. I mean,
I don't know.
And you got to give him credit.
When he was in Arizona, though, I mean, they had Larry Fitzgerald, they had Breston, they had Anquan Bolden, and he adjusted to that talent. I think that he was just the easy scapegoat early in the season. Oh, fire Todd Haley and we'll be 4-0. Well, the defense was playing terrible. The offensive line was really bad. He was just an easy scapegoat.
I don't know if I'd say easy scapegoat. I mean, even parts of times last year, his calls were questionable. I'm just saying when I'm not ready to say I still like the hire, but I'll give credit where credit is due in saying he's really these last 2 weeks the offense has looked a lot better. Whatever you want to attribute that to, but I mean you got to give him some success, some praise because he is the coordinator.
Right.
But you think Oakland? You think Pittsburgh goes to Oakland? No, let's wrap this up though. What do you think? Bottom line, you think Steelers take care of business, win 3 in a row?
I do. I think that Terrell Pryor is too inconsistent to lead the Raiders to a win.
I think the Steelers win this one on Sunday.
And I read. I don't want to make it too extreme. I saw it on Twitter. The Raiders coming off of their bye weeks or their last I want to say 7 or 8 bye weeks. They're like 0-8 off their bye weeks. So, I mean,
that's not good.
Yeah. All signs point to a Steelers victory, and if they get to 3 and 4, they're right back in the division race. They're in the wild card race.
Because they'll be sitting even with the team that we are going to unfortunately talk about next.
All right, Cleveland Browns.
That team
Cleveland
would be
Browns.
the Cleveland Browns. Going in to play Kansas City this
At
week.
Arrowhead.
At Arrowhead.
Which I think has. Well, no, it's not. I think I know they have passed.
They did.
They're the loudest
passed-
crowd in history.
They've passed the
Seahawks.
Seahawks as the loudest stadium. So I mean, that's not good for Brandon Wheaton.
No, the Browns have looked just so awful since Brandon Wheaton has returned. On the year, he only has a 52% completion percentage. He's thrown 5 touchdowns to 6 interceptions.
Solid.
Last week, he was 17 of 42 for a 40% clip. That's just terrible. And on his completions, he didn't even throw for many yards. He only had 149 yards. The offense has just looked awful. The defense, the past couple games are giving up 31 points a game compared to the 19 points a game in the first 5 games they're giving up. I really just expect the Chiefs, Jamal Charles to run all over them, Alex Smith just to take care of business like usual. Chiefs win. I'm going to go with a 24-13 score, but it won't feel that close.
Hold on. Let's open up the floor to Ian because I'd like to hear what he has to say on this.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do. Let's hear it, Ian.
Okay, where should I start with this?
You should start with the defense that was supposed to be. I mean, they were playing good at the beginning of the year. What's wrong with the defense, Ian?
Buster screen.
Buster screen's a good starting point. No pass pressure. Missed tackles. Literally everything that you can do wrong on defense, they've done the last couple of weeks. And it all started in the Buffalo game on Thursday night. And from there, it's just tailspin, out of control. And this is, if this, what I'm about to tell you does not perfectly describe what being a Cleveland Browns fan is like, then nothing will. On Monday, Rod Chudzinski in his press conference comes out and says that he's considering a change at quarterback. And everyone rejoices. Right. Finally, hallelujah, praise God.
Cut him. Cut Brandon Wheaton, all right.
So, who's the logical guy? It's going to be Jason Campbell, right? You brought him in here to compete for this starting job. You passed him over for Brian Hoyer, and that move worked out until he got hurt. He's got to be the guy that you go with, right?
I think so.
Except that today, they work out Vince Young.
Woo! All right.
They work out Vince Young at quarterback.
Oh, good Lord.
Then, when they release the depth chart today, Brandon Wheaton's still the starter and Jason Campbell's second. So does he? Why?
All right, Ian, before you have an aneurysm.
Calm down, buddy.
Do the Browns lose this week?
Yes, the Browns lose this week, and they lose convincingly this week.
How bad's the score going to be?
The score wouldn't surprise me if it's 42-0. Really, it's that bad. I mean, you've got to think they're playing a Kansas City team that is plus 11 in turnovers on the season.
They're just nasty.
Against a quarterback that turns the ball over on every single possession, it seems like. Okay. I was at the opening game this year when he threw 3 interceptions in his first 8 pass attempts.
Wait. You paid money?
I paid money to watch that garbage.
Okay, real quick, though, Ian, I mean, as you calm down, I really think...
No, there's no calming down.
I mean,
do you need to go take a minute?
No.
This is the ultimate troll. If you're... I mean, Cleveland. Here's Cleveland. They're in first place. They control their own destiny.
And then Cleveland.
And
happens.
then the wheels just fall off. I mean, they're not out of it yet, logically, technically, because they.
But it sure does feel
right.
It sure does feel.
Doesn't it feel like it almost feels like the Steelers have the Browns record and the Browns have the Steelers record. Yeah. But I mean, they can't be different right now. Pittsburgh started out 0-4, horrible. They got some momentum with the 2 wins in a row. Cleveland started out, what, 3-2?
3-2.
They lost the first 2 games. They go on a 3-game losing streak, 3-game winning streak, and then
that. I don't even know where to start. I have a question though, Ian. You're a Cleveland fan, and maybe you can answer this. B, I want to hear your opinion on this too. Do you think the trade rumors swirling around Josh Gordon are affecting his play?
No. I don't.
I'm just asking.
I just think it's because he's got an awful excuse of a quarterback throwing him the football.
I agree with Ian more on that. That would be
because they're looking to trade him for some reason.
And that would be another really good move for the Browns. He's been good, but he's kind
Trouble.
of he's got trouble.
Here's
He's
the-
kind of a one-trick pony, and if you can get value out of him, more power to this management.
Here's
team.
the thing, though. They're not going to trade him, and there's been no talk in the organization of trading him. That's Cleveland media
Okay.
trying to swirl things up
Okay.
in the
Just-
organization
just
because
wanted-
they
just
want to
wanted-
see things
Just,
get
just,
shaken
I
up.
just wanted to know. I
That's
didn't-
the fan base trying to swirl things up
Because
because they want to see.
I
things
don't
happen.
know. That's what I was wondering because I don't know why you would trade a receiver like that. I mean, if he could clean his act up,
Receivers are expendable.
But the thing is, Josh Gordon is the only legitimate deep ball threat
exactly.
they have on that
you
roster
take Josh
right now.
Gordon out of
You
their
saw what
lineup.
happened the first 2 games when they didn't
Exactly.
have Josh
Right.
Gordon.
Right.
And one more thing, where has Jordan Cameron been this last? I mean, is it just
It's
all fall back
It's
on
Brandon
him?
Whedon.
It is
Okay.
Brandon Whedon.
Okay.
All right,
Brandon
let's
Whedon.
move
Let's
on.
move
Hold
on.
on a second.
Okay.
Hold on, I'm not done with
Wait,
this
I
yet.
want to predict this score as well.
Go ahead. You didn't get a chance to. He says 42-0. I say 24-13.
I don't know where you're.
But not that close.
I'm
Not that close.
I'm impressed you're giving the Browns 13 points, really.
Okay, no touchdowns. 24-6. Not that close.
I was gonna say, was it gonna be and when you get your 13, was it a couple 2 field goals and a blocked extra point? I mean, I just wonder.
Right, whatever.
I think I'm on the lines of Ian on this one. I don't. The Chiefs' defense is really, really good.
I mean, you've
they
got
were good last year when they were 2-14.
I
Yeah.
mean, what 10 interceptions on the year
10
already?
interceptions,
This
that's
is-
third
this is
best
what-
in the
This
league.
is what I'm calling. I'm calling 35-3. Okay,
Mhm.
but 3 defensive touchdowns,
I would not be surprised.
2 pick sixes,
Yep.
And a Tom
And-
Brady fumble
and a
recovery.
fumble recovery. And then I think Jamar Charles gets one, and then maybe Alex Smith throws one. It's not going to be close.
But this, I'm just going to touch on this, and I'm going to go on my God hates Cleveland rant here for a minute.
Factory of sadness.
Yes, but like you said, this is the biggest tease that I think I've ever had as a Browns fan in my life.
I think so.
Because,
The talent
Just-
is there.
but the thing is, Brian Hoyer steps into that starting quarterback position, and this team looks entirely different from how it did the first 2 weeks. It really does. It looks completely different. They're winning games. They're scoring points. They have weapons on offense. The team starts to get rolling. And then God hates Cleveland. He tears his ACL on a freak hit.
I don't think that God tore his ACL.
No. No, but the thing is, it's just one of those.
No,
it
God
always-
does hate Cleveland.
It
though.
always happens, is the thing.
It's
Every
the mistake
year,
by the lake.
Every year, it always happens. It's just,
Ian,
And
I'm
if it
sorry.
didn't have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, there would be no reason to go. All right, let's move on to another AFC North team. The Bengals have the Jets at home this week. The Bengals are a really, really fragile 5-2. I think personally they've taken a step back, but they've managed to win a couple close games, which is a sign of a good team. But they could easily be 3-4 right now.
I just want to ask the two of you one question, because now the Steelers are, in my eyes, officially back in contention in this race. And
Ish, yeah.
Ish.
you have
Yeah.
a win over the Ravens, so you're even with them in the record once they win this week, because the Steelers are going to win this week. And you're going to be even with Cleveland in terms of record once they lose this week, because Cleveland's going to lose this
Right,
week.
right.
So you're sitting in a tie for second place right there. How much does it piss you off, the two of you, that the only thing you need to have happen is Cincinnati to just lose, and then they pull these games out of their rear ends like they did on Sunday?
If Mike Nugent wasn't the greatest field goal kicker ever, an Ohio State product who is the greatest field goal kicker ever, no. But I mean, if he didn't kick a 54-yard field goal, it goes into overtime. You know what I mean?
No. Let's back it
But
up.
I was going to say,
If-
let's back it
Yeah,
up.
okay, listen. I am no means an NFL punter at all. This is blatantly obvious. But I think I could punt the ball 26 yards.
I would give
Maybe
you
even, I think I could punt it like 35 yards. Give me one of those shoes that they wear.
Yeah.
I might kick it 40. How do you shank a punt? There was
in
no
a dome. In a dome.
in a dome with no pressure. That was the only reason. Listen, you give any team the ball at the 50-yard line with about 50 seconds left.
With
they're
with the exception of the Cleveland Browns.
okay,
Because Brandon Whedon.
right? Anyway, but still, you know what I'm saying. The Lions were in control. They let it slip away. And even at that point, the game, okay, we didn't go down, we didn't get the field goal. Okay, we go to overtime, take our chance. No, the punter fails. I
It's always bad when your loss goes back on your special teams
Yeah.
play.
and
So, I mean, they have
I'm
the Jets.
I'm not too worried about Cincinnati. I mean, I know they're 5-2.
The difference is that they have a win over the Steelers this year.
So
But if the Steelers split with them, then
I think honestly, if Pittsburgh would make I just gonna throw it out there. If Pittsburgh would go 8-8, I'd be happy this year. The way if you start out 0-4 and you come that
8-8,
far,
yeah.
I mean, if they somehow, I don't think they're going to win the division just because. I mean, it's a 3-game. I mean, it's a 3-game hole. It's not that bad right now. I mean, if they would somehow get the second wild card and just go to the playoffs, that'd be huge this year.
Mm-hmm.
But with the Bengals playing the Jets this week, yeah, I'm sorry. Boy, what do you get with the Jets? I mean, they look really bad against. They look horrible against the Steelers. I mean, are the Jets just a lucky team? I mean, go back to week 1. If that rookie linebacker doesn't truck Geno Smith out of bounds and give him an extra 15 yards, they might not win that game. I mean, against the Patriots in overtime, I mean, this is probably the first time they've ever called that rule about shoving the other player.
It is.
It's a legitimate rule.
It is a real
it is a
rule.
rule.
The NFL did not come up with the rule to screw the Patriots out of the game.
I don't think it makes any sense because the guy was like right
It's a
beside.
safety
Right, he was right
concern.
beside. I mean, he didn't get like a. The rules,
Right.
Okay, the rules are the rules. I
Yes.
guess, is what the point
Yes.
is. But I mean, it wasn't like the guy took off 15 yards before the ball was snapped, started running, pushed the guy into. I mean, he was right there with. I mean, but even still, you still got to credit the Jets for finding a way to win. I just don't know what. I mean, at times Geno Smith looks really good, and then other times he looks like a rookie.
I've been impressed by the Jets this year. Defensively against the Steelers, they were solid. But once again, it was Dick LeBeau against a rookie quarterback, which is a majority of the time, unless it's a really special rookie, it's not going to be pretty, and it wasn't. But defensively, they played really well against the Steelers, holding them to 4 field goals when they had so many opportunities to score touchdowns.
I think the Bengals win though again this week.
Right.
It's at
The
Cincinnati.
Bengals will win this game as fun as it would be if they lost. Steelers win. They're only one back in the loss column. But the Bengals will most likely win this week. They have a defense very similar to the Steelers. Pressure the quarterback, force turnovers. They'll get in Geno's face. He'll panic. He'll have a couple key interceptions. The defense will keep it close. I'm gonna go with a 17 to I'm gonna go with a 17-10 score.
It's not bad. And really, Cincinnati. Not that they're starting to scare me because I think Andy Dalton just isn't. I don't think he's. I mean, he's a franchise quarterback, but he's like a franchise quarterback that's just gonna take you to the playoffs.
He's the Matt Ryan of the AFC. You can't bench him because he's not bad. But at what point do you say, no, making the playoffs just isn't enough?
As long as Mike Brown's the owner of that team, it is just enough.
Right.
But anyway, what's scary is Giovanni Bernard is getting better each week.
Oh.
So
yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, he just makes plays, and I think he's gonna make a big play in this game, and that's gonna be the difference. I'm going to say 21-17 Bengals.
I was impressed with how much better Cincinnati's offense looked last week against Detroit. They spun their wheels the last couple of weeks leading into that game. And
Dalton
then
threw 3 touchdowns.
You figure they finally found a way to get the ball to A.J. Green on a deep ball. I mean, albeit Andy Dalton threw maybe the biggest lame duck in the history of deep ball throws. But guy catches it, runs in for a touchdown. That's what counts at the end of the play. Nobody talks about the type of throw. It all that matters is what happens with the throw. He caught it and he scored. That's it.
Speaking of catches, man, what a catch Calvin Johnson had.
Oh.
Yeah. 3 defenders.
3 defenders. But
yeah.
I think Cincinnati's offense is finally starting to find a little bit of a groove
Which is
now,
scary.
Which is a little scary.
When you're down 3 games.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I like Cincinnati in this game. I just don't, and I'm gonna take a 35-14 win for the Bengals.
Yeah.
Alright,
Hold on. I got one more thing. Before we bring up the NHLB. What's with the amount of injuries this week, man? I mean,
Yeah,
you
it
saw
was-
Reggie
it was
Wayne lost
bad.
for the year. Sam Bradford out for the year. I mean, the list,
Jermichael Finley, a very serious injury.
I mean, I think they said he was up and walking.
Yeah, can I just comment on that hit for a little bit since it did involve a Browns player, but that's one of those situations where Finley gets tripped up from behind and he's going to the ground. Now, obviously, the speed of the game, Tashawn Gibson cannot know that Finley is going to go down like that. He can't know that. So, as a tackler, you are taught to go for the legs.
Right.
So, Gibson goes for where Finley's legs should be. Only Finley's legs aren't there. His head's there. Now,
it's a freak play.
It's a freak play. You can't say that Gibson was going
No,
after
I don't think it was a
Finley.
dirty play. I just think it was a freak play.
It's a freak play. And you can
I just-
argue that maybe Gibson was going in with his helmet. Maybe not. But again, it was one of those situations where he was going for where Finley's legs should have been,
Right.
and they weren't there.
And
it's sad to see that it had to happen to Finley.
Right.
Because,
He's
again,
an
you don't wanna-
injury-riddled guy.
You don't want to see a guy get injured, but it's not like Gibson was.
No, I don't
aiming
think
at
there's
him or
any.
anything
I don't
like
think
that.
there's any more.
Anyone who
intent.
watched the
Right.
play
Right.
saw what happened.
Aaron Foster.
Aaron
out.
Foster goes
So
out.
what? My question, I guess, is what missing player is gonna be affected the most? Like, what team's really gonna miss one of these players?
I'm gonna have to say it's gonna be Indianapolis and Reggie Wayne.
I would say
what-
so too.
And maybe the second would be Sam Bradford and the Rams, only
No.
because Sam Bradford
Right,
is
because-
about the only
Right.
noteworthy player
Right,
on that offense.
and when Sam Bradford plays well, they usually win.
They
It's
look
just-
good.
It's just he's so
But I mean,
inconsistent.
Reggie Wayne is such a huge
I
part
would-
of the
I
Indianapolis.
would go
what-
with Reggie
I
Wayne.
know, what a shame though. He was there. 10 games of
away.
breaking the record of receiver.
Most consecutive games
Ah,
played by a
but
receiver.
Who was it? I can't think of who it was. But still,
At
what-
any rate, I mean that's
still
really impressive.
189 straight games, and he
Yeah.
tears the ACL.
And you really got to credit Andrew Luck. He
still
took the credit. He said, "That's my fault. That was a terrible throw. If
Yeah.
I put that ball where it's supposed to be, he never gets hurt."
Yeah.
I don't know if you get.
I know,
I mean,
but
it's
like
one of those
it's
things
a
you can't
re- it's
say
a
what
it's a
happened.
it's a really
He took
nice
responsibility.
move on his
Yeah.
part.
I mean, and
All right, let's move
at
on.
his age, though, I'm sorry, B. Have we seen the last of Reggie Wayne? Is he gonna come
No.
back?
No,
He's a
Reggie
competitor.
Wayne.
I know though, but he's getting up there. I don't know.
I
We'll have to see.
understand that, but I just
mean,
feel like the guy
right.
is going to be able to bounce back. He's
Right.
got 2 or 3 years left.
Okay,
in him,
I
think.
hope.
I
so.
hope so too because
All right, B.
All
Cue it
right,
up.
let's finally. Anything else?
Oh, I'm
Let's
good.
finally move on to the NHL.
Go Jaguars!
Go Jaguars. Get your win, baby.
God damn it.
Poor London. All right, let's move on to the NHL. Really big matchup last night. Two of the best teams in the league, the Colorado Avalanche, come in to play the Pittsburgh Penguins. Just a game really dominated by the Penguins. If it wasn't for Jean-Sébastien Giguère, who had 34 saves and at times was standing on his head backward, holding like 3 trays of pizza and blocking off goals and not dropping the pizzas. I mean, they got outshot 34-14. Pittsburgh threw, about 60 shots up? I mean, there were only 34 shots on goal.
Talking about block shots and everything.
Right,
It was about
yeah.
64, 65.
Yeah.
So they
Pittsburgh
dominated.
won 62% of the faceoffs, had 7 power plays, never was able to execute though. And
Yeah,
they only had the Avalanche had 1 goal by Landeskog.
It was an absolute snipe of a goal.
It was-
I mean, it was
a
nice
ridiculous
goal.
goal.
But I mean,
and you know what? And what I don't fault Fleury because
No.
Fleury played well
Fleury
in this game.
played-
He kept
he
it
didn't-
in the game.
I mean, he didn't
right?
have
I mean,
to face that much.
He was almost just as impressive as
But
Giguère,
what
only
upset
not
me,
in such a
though,
volume.
Yeah.
was the goal came right after our power play expired, and he got loose.
He got loose.
Right.
He
You
got
just
behind.
you can't allow
Typical
that.
Penguins.
That's
though.
exactly. I mean, that's
The
what
goal
the
should
Penguins,
never happen, but it happened.
But the
Exactly,
thing
because
is, though, the difference that I find with that is it's not like you're allowing some third line
No,
forward
no,
to
it
get
was-
behind your
it was-
defense.
it was
You're
just a good
allowing one of
player.
the best young players
right,
in
I
the
mean, pretty
league
much
to get
all-
behind you.
Right. I mean, it was just upsetting.
I mean,
And-
the thing with this game last night is I'm not disappointed in how the
No,
Pens played.
absolutely
I'm
not.
not disappointed that the Pens lost this game. I'm just frustrated that you have 7 opportunities on the power play and you can't convert once. And obviously some of that has to go to John Sebastian Giguère
They were
for how
putting-
well he played.
Ugh.
I mean, but
and you know what else?
and it's frustrating to kind of see that as an offensive team because the Pens played a really good game
And I was
overall
even
last night.
defensively,
Defensively, they
looked
shut,
good.
they
Yeah,
shut down a really good team.
Right, and you know who looked really good and continues to look good was Ollie Mata.
Ollie Mata.
Oh, he's
man.
just getting better and better. What, 19 years old?
19
Oh.
years old.
But you know what? Not bothered me, but I mean, it felt like the Penguins though when it was 5-on-5, they really never got anything going from behind the net and had any offense going from behind the net. I mean,
no, the last minute was 5-on-4. I was gonna say
No,
the
not
last minute, but
I mean,
that
I'm just
was
saying,
a 5-on-4.
they never played
yeah.
behind the Avalanche's net and kind of mix. I mean, I guess when you're 0 for 7 on a power play, you're gonna lose.
That's
almost
it.
always.
That's it right there.
But hey, Ian, obviously I know you watched the game.
Yeah.
How about when Kunitz went in, Malkin came out. They didn't catch Malkin, and Malkin had that shot that that the goaltender just saved. There was a little bit of trickery late in the
Yep.
game,
Right.
and I thought at that I was like, this is the point that he's got it, and he
Yep.
just, oh man.
I mean,
And
when
again,
you-
credit to John Sebastian Giguère for
and
playing
he's
an
the only,
unbelievable
he is
game.
the only reason the Avalanche won that game.
right.
I mean, they did. I mean, they're still 8-1. They were
And
7-1 before. They
Here
didn't
is
look that good.
here is the craziest part of that performance last night. He's the backup.
Yes.
Simeon Varlamov
I know.
is the starting goaltender of that team.
For now.
The backup
For
made
now.
34
I
saves
know.
on one of the best offensive
Yes.
teams in the league.
I mean, if they played, honestly, they played a 7-game series and played like that for the entire
Yeah.
series, they probably win.
Right.
Yeah.
And, I mean,
It just
could
sucks.
we get that lucky to see that again?
that would be-
that
that'd
would
be great.
That'd be a
That would be an
Right.
unbelievable
Right.
series.
I just have a quick yes or no question. I saw something
No.
today that absolutely cracked me up.
Oh.
I mean, as funny as it was when Ryan Clark said at 0-4 the Steelers will make the playoffs. The Flyers are 1-7. Claude Giroux comes out. We're making the playoffs. Quick yes or no?
No.
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 Okay.
Moving
Let's
on.
move on to an actual hockey team. The San Jose Sharks. They're the best team in the league at this point. 8-0-1. They haven't lost a regulation game. Their only loss was a shootout to the Dallas Stars. 17 points, most in the league. But they're kind of the West Coast Penguins, dominate the regular season. Antti Niemi is kind of the West Coast version of Marc-Andre Fleury. Great in the regular season, falls apart in the playoffs. Is this year's team different, Cody?
It's too early to tell.
I get the feeling that it is a little
Right.
bit. I get the feeling that
They
it is.
seem like. Did you
Because-
see the goal, the save Niemi had the other day, last night
Yes.
against? They played the Red Wings. What?
I believe it was the
I
Red
think-
Wings.
And, I mean, they had the penalty shot, and the guy, he came right. He was coming down the right. He faked right. Niemi dove right, and the guy had an empty net. He goes to put it up, and he kicks. He puts his legs
it was,
out. and,
against the Red Wings
I mean,
last night.
I mean, just unbelievable goaltending.
Unbelievable goaltending, unbelievable offense. I mean, this team is really
Right.
hitting it
I
early.
think it is a little different
I-
than in past.
it feels different.
But I mean,
We'll
then
have to
again,
see in
then
April.
again,
Yeah.
they felt like it felt different the years they won the President's Cup. I mean, from like 07 to 11, it felt like almost every single year President's Cup, first round exit.
Yeah,
so we'll have to see.
We'll see.
Let's move on to the NBA. It starts this week. The Penguins,
We're playing basketball now?
the Cavaliers. Their debut it's either a week from today or a week and 1 day from today.
You should know that, B.
I can't remember.
It's the 29th or the 30th. I can't remember off
who
the
they
top of my
play?
head. I don't know. But I mean, coming
Okay.
into the
I'll be
season,
honest, I'm writing for them and I don't even know who they're playing.
right?
But
I mean, coming into the
It's
season,
I mean, it's World Series, college
yeah, it's
football.
World Series,
Right.
college
Who
football,
cares?
NFL, NHL.
Right.
Yeah.
So going into the season, many are picking them as kind of a dark horse team. They signed Bynum, that gives them a really good point guard and a really good center. Say they can both stay healthy. Mike Brown's coming back, who was a really good coach when he was in Cleveland. It was just kind of a desperation move to keep LeBron.
But the thing was with Mike Brown is that his success in Cleveland was
LeBron.
because of LeBron.
We saw what he did in LA.
Yeah, you saw what happened in LA.
Probably the biggest concern for them though is defense, which Mike Brown will kind of address.
Yeah.
He's kind of a defensive-minded coach.
I think bringing in Bynum is kind of the start
Right.
of that, kind of addressing
but
that
they,
issue.
they gave up they were 25th last year in points allowed. Not good. Cleveland.
Yeah, they actually they're opening up at home against the Brooklyn Nets. It's gonna be a tough matchup.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it'll be a tough matchup, but I don't know if the
There's
Nets
this-
will be so hyped up for opening night as a younger team will. The Nets are going to kind of take on the Celtics role. I mean, with having Pearson, Garnett,
And Darren Williams.
I say they
there
still
as
have
well.
Darren Williams and Brooke Lopez. I mean,
Yeah.
right? But I mean,
Joe Johnson.
Joe Johnson. I mean, that's a really good team.
I understand that, but what I'm saying is I don't expect such a big contribution from Pearson Garnett on opening night.
I'm just saying you're a fool for saying that because you potentially have 3 or 4 Hall of Famers in that lineup.
But I mean,
I see what you're saying, but
I'm just gonna
it's
look.
gonna be tough.
I'm gonna look deeper ahead than just the first game
Right.
because I feel like if this team can stay healthy, if the Cavaliers stay healthy, they're gonna be in the playoffs.
I mean,
because
absolutely.
the East isn't that great.
The East is bad.
I mean, if you win 36 games, you're the eighth seed.
Milwaukee was 38-44 last year.
I mean,
you had the right to win to lose to the Heat, which is all the AC gets you. But at least it's a playoff.
But here's the thing: as a Cleveland fan at this point, I want to get into the playoffs as an 8 seed, so I have 7 opportunities to finally just once beat LeBron James. I just want to beat LeBron James one time, with just once.
So
I don't want to even eliminate him from the playoffs.
that
I
would
just
be
want to
like-
win one
that would
game.
that would make your life.
That would make my life. I would never have to watch an NBA game again if that happened.
Kind of an underrated addition though on the Cavaliers is Jarrett Jack. I mean,
Yeah.
he played a pretty big role for the Warriors last year in the playoffs. He was kind of a steadying hand when Steph Curry went to the bench.
Yeah, I mean they have a good team.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, obviously, with maybe the exception of Chris Paul, Kyrie Irving's the best point guard in the league, in my
I
eyes.
think
we do have
he's-
Derrick
he's-
Rose coming back.
Derrick Rose is coming back, but I
think Kyrie's definitely in the conversation.
Right.
You
I
have
feel-
to put him up there.
I feel like in terms of pure point guard play,
okay,
Kyrie
I got-
Irving is
I
the
got
most
you.
pure point
Yes.
guard in the NBA. Because not only is he going to score you about 19, 20 points a game, but he'll dish out about 11, 12, 13
That's about right.
assists. So, and he doesn't turn the ball over.
No, he's
secure with the ball.
when he's on the court and he's healthy, he's an absolute dominant force to be reckoned with. Cody, do you think the Cavs make the playoffs this year? I'm not saying do damage. Just slip in.
I think they could get the 8 seed if they stay healthy. The big question mark this year is going to be, I mean, Cleveland. With the lottery system, they got the number 1 overall pick again, and they took Anthony Bennett.
I love that pick. I really do love that pick.
I like that pick because it's
potential.
Right. It's not a desperation pick like in the past.
That was the safest pick that they've had at that point.
Right.
Because who else are you going to take? Everyone's talking. Do you want to take Nerlens Noel?
Absolutely
the guy who tore
not.
his ACL halfway through
not
the
even
year
gonna play
last
this
year?
year.
And
No, I mean,
really
I'm not saying I don't like. I like the pick. It was just that's going to be. I mean, if he can have a decent season, that's going to be one of the factors. If Bynum can return to form, did the development of
Alonzo G.
Alonzo G.
No. I'm talking about the guy they took last year.
Dion
Waiters, because when they picked him, it was like, what?
Who? And then he goes out and he
I mean,
looks like a
because-
sharpshooter.
He's a good young player, but if he continues to develop, that'll help them out. Tristan Thompson.
Tristan
Right.
Thompson
Too.
is
That
one of
another
the-
person.
One of my favorite guys. on that team.
Another guy who coming out of Texas. They were kind of like, wait, that's who we picked.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
And
not
he's kind of
well known.
panned out. I mean,
He's
right.
the thing is, that is a team full of role players
They
with
need a
one
star.
key superstar on that team in Kyrie
And
Irving.
they potentially have two.
They
with
potentially
Bynum.
have
if he
two with
can stay-
Bynum. And they
um,
might have three because I feel like Anthony Bennett could
Can
be a
develop
superstar.
into that.
I feel like
Okay,
Anthony Bennett could be a
Okay,
superstar.
so we all agree they think they could.
I
sneak
feel
in
like this
at the
team-
8 seed. Maybe if they play well, maybe they get the 7 seed.
I
Just
feel
think-
like this team could be a 6 or a 5, really,
I
if they
mean,
stay
they-
healthy.
If they
Eastern
stay
Conference-
If they
healthy.
stay healthy,
I mean,
this
because you
could
got
be
the
a 6
Eastern
or 5
Conference,
team.
you got Miami, you probably got Brooklyn, you got Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Chicago.
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 That's it.
But other than that, I
Question
mean,
marks.
the
The
Knicks are going to
Knicks-
fall off this year. The Bonjani trade was absolutely idiotic.
The Knicks are still going to be in the playoffs. Listen, to
Oh
make
no,
mistake.
Carmelo will
Knicks are going to
carry
be in the
them.
playoffs.
there.
Yeah.
Brooklyn's going to be in the
Brooklyn
playoffs.
will
And
be in
other
the
than
playoffs.
that, that's it.
You have
And I
question
think the
marks
Cavs-
all up and down.
I think the Cavs can be better than the Knicks.
I feel like the Cavs can
think
be better than both of those teams.
So we'll
I feel
see.
like the Cavs,
Okay.
if they stay
Okay,
healthy,
I know this is early, Ian, and then I know you are a diehard Cleveland sports fan, but LeBron more than likely is going to opt out of his contract at the end of this year. Would you welcome him back?
I've said this ever since that speculation
I mean-
popped up. Hell no.
Okay.
No.
as a
no.
non-Cleveland sports fan, how can you not? You are idiotic to put a petty little. Oh well, the decision was just mean.
Okay,
And
I'll
how
agree
could
with
you-
you. I'll agree. I'll side with the Cleveland sports fan because I mean I kind of fell into some good fortune because I was kind of a Heat fan before the Big Three. So I mean I'm loving this right now, but I know their time is really. Don't even look at me like that.
No, I know you were a
Okay,
Heat fan.
thank
You were a Heat fan before they won their first title. You've always been a Dwayne Wade fan.
That's
I'm
right.
not saying you're a
But
bandwagon
listen,
fan
I know.
at all.
Okay, you had that look. But what I'm saying.
No, I had it look like I wanted to say something.
Hold on. What? I just don't see that. I understand. I agree with you. The decision that was a douchebag.
That was the
moment.
ultimate
That
slap
was
in the
just-
face.
I mean, if he would have did that, I mean, I know like he raised charity for the Boys and Girls Club, but that was just dick.
It was
Especially
very
since
dick.
he wasn't going back to Cleveland. That's what was.
It
dick
was an
about it.
hour TV special to make Cleveland sports fans feel like,
I mean, there was people.
Shit.
There was
no,
people,
God hates Cleveland.
God hates
There
Cleveland.
was people in bars and stuff like having parties for this thing in
Yeah.
Cleveland with their jerseys, expecting him to. Okay, I'm coming. No,
No.
but all I'm saying is just stop and think about this for a second. Because
Logically.
logically,
Not
Ian,
emotionally.
not emotionally,
Logically.
Okay, stop. Okay, Cleveland more than likely will have the space to offer him a deal, and you got the hometown discount kind of thing. Again, Kyrie Irving, Deion Waiters, LeBron James, Tristan Thompson, Anthony Bennett, possibly
Bynum.
Andrew Bynum. That puts them right back up. I mean, that's
That's a 61 team.
and then you take away the fact that Miami won't have anybody because LeBron left. They could be the favorites next year in the East.
Here's the thing, though. I understand that
Maybe we don't
Logically-
get it, DJ, because we're
lo-
not from we're not Cleveland fans.
the thing,
No, we don't understand because God loves Pittsburgh.
but the thing, the thing is that I understand that if it were to happen, it would be great. The Cavs would be great again.
Right.
But there's a couple of issues that I have with it.
Okay.
Outside of the decision, even.
Okay.
First off, where's my guarantee that LeBron's even going to opt out of his contract?
It's just that
Just
I'm
hypothetically.
I was just throwing it out because I think he will.
See,
I don't.
I don't believe that
I
he's
don't
even
think he
going
will.
to.
I think he
I
will.
don't believe that he's even going to. So all this talk is just
And
absolute
can you
garbage to
just
begin
think for
with
a
in my-
second, living in Miami and winning shit, because he's to the point where he doesn't need other people.
He's already a Hall of
He's gonna
Famer.
win the title by himself. He's to that point. He's now on a Michael Jordan level. Not better, but he's on that level of he
I
can
think
do it by himself.
That's another.
let's
argument.
not-
I don't want
start
to get
with
into that. I don't
Let's-
want to get into that, but I'm just saying. So you think you can live in Miami or you can live in Cleveland? That's a no-brainer for me.
Cleveland.
Cleveland.
Cleveland. All right, let's
No, can I just say one more thing though?
I
Go
guess.
ahead.
Ian.
Can I just say one more thing though?
I mean, we gotta make room to talk about the Pittsburgh NBA team, right?
I know, but we gotta
Pittsburgh
find time
Pistons,
for
baby.
this. But here's the thing.
That rolls
It
off
just
the tongue.
wouldn't feel right
Right.
to me. It
I
wouldn't
guess.
feel right to me
It's like
to
hey,
welcome a guy back just for winning a championship when
Well-
you ridiculed him for the last
Right.
few
I
years
guess.
for doing the same thing
True.
with another team.
It's like you
Okay.
have a girlfriend and she breaks up with you for a guy. She goes and gets a boob job and then she comes back and wants to be with you again. It just feels dirty.
It wouldn't feel
But
right.
I mean, it
How
would
awesome
be
would that be?
awesome.
That team would be awesome. I mean,
Let's move on. Let's do some predictions for the final. A way too early prediction for the finals.
hey, let's expand this though. Not only finals, give me your 8 teams in each conference.
That's a lot.
Really? Do you
All right.
follow the NBA?
Yes, I follow the NBA.
Thank you. Do
Okay.
your finals prediction, and then give me your 8 teams of each who make the playoffs in each conference.
Okay,
That's
I'm gonna
interesting.
go with in the East. I'm gonna go with the Heat, Bulls,
Yeah.
Pacers. In no particular order, because other than the Heat getting the 1 seed, they can all flop around. The Nets, Cleveland, the Knicks, Atlanta, and Milwaukee will get the 8 seed.
Okay.
In the Western Conference, the Clippers, Warriors,
There's a couple 2 good teams from
that is
Texas.
a couple of teams.
Spurs.
Okay,
Thunder?
I'm getting there.
Well,
The
no.
Spurs, the Thunder. See who else?
Memphis.
Memphis. I don't know. The Western
Houston.
Conference is kind of boring.
Houston?
Houston will make the playoffs.
Boring. Oh, B.
Come on, why do I gotta
know.
name 8 teams from each conference? I'm telling
I'm just
you
seeing
right
if you can
now.
name 8 teams.
I
from
can
each-
name 8 teams from each conference. I'm telling you right now, though,
Okay.
it's gonna be the Heat and
Okay.
the Warriors.
Oh, I like
I
it.
think it'll go. I think it'll go about 5 or 6 games, and the Heat will win. LeBron will get his 3rd straight. Woo! That's gonna put him on a Michael Jordan-esque level, and it's really gonna be fun after that to see where his career goes.
My 8 were gonna be Miami, Chicago, Indiana, Brooklyn, Cleveland, New York, and Atlanta. Are gonna
And your 8th,
You need
my
another
8 will
team.
be
Milwaukee.
not even Milwaukee. I'm gonna just go with
I
my
got a
dark
team.
horse here and say Orlando.
Oh wow.
I'll take Orlando.
Oladipo.
I'll take Orlando.
Okay.
In
like
the
it.
West, I'm gonna go with Golden State, San Antonio, Houston, Oklahoma City, Dallas,
The Clippers.
LA,
The Clippers.
The
Oh,
Clippers.
Okay.
the Clippers, Portland,
Okay.
and the Lakers are gonna be my 8
Okay.
out in the West. I don't trust the Nuggets enough to say that they're gonna get in. I don't trust the Grizzlies enough to say that they're gonna get in.
Okay.
Okay.
My finals, I am going to go with the Heat and the Thunder again. I think it's Heat
Oh.
Thunder.
That's a
Rematch.
I think it's Heat Thunder, and in my I hate LeBron bias, the Oklahoma City Thunder win 6 games.
Okay, here we go.
Cody, give us your dark horse.
What?
Do you really need to name all 8
Yes.
teams that we've all been
Okay,
naming for the past?
B.
Give us your dark
Okay,
horse and your
shut up.
prediction.
Okay. The only in the Eastern Conference, the team I have, not Milwaukee or not Orlando, I'm gonna take the Detroit Pistons with their signing of Josh Smith and
Okay.
pairing that with them. I think they're good enough for 36, 37, 38 wins. Out in the West, since this is different, I have Oklahoma City, San Antonio, the Clippers, Memphis. I had Memphis getting in because I just like Memphis. I think Houston gets in because of Dwight Howard and
they were
James
close
Harden.
last year. They really played
Right.
well the second half of the year.
I think Dwight Howard will just be completely different than he was in LA because that was just a mistake. Then I have the Lakers getting in as the AC. I just think,
Kobe.
2 years in a row without Kobe, you get rid of Dwight Howard, and that's just better. And then I have Golden State getting in.
Right.
Finals prediction, obviously I have Miami in the East. I'm gonna go out on a limb. It could be. The Western Conference definitely where it at in terms of who's gonna get it. I'm gonna say Dwight Howard just completely dominates and returns to form, and you have Lynn and Harden and Howard, and I'm gonna say they make the finals. But then I think I have the Heat in 5 games, 6 games, and they three-peat.
All right, let's move on to our bold predictions. Cody,
I don't know yet.
Ian.
Bold predictions. The Boston Red Sox hit a grand slam in the first two games of the World
That'd be
Series.
obvious, but more like obvious prediction.
I'm gonna go out on a limb. I'm gonna say the Redskins beat the Broncos. I'm gonna say that RG3's finally, and he's on his way back.
He looked good last week.
I'm gonna say he goes out, beats a bad Broncos defense, which didn't really look much better with Von Miller in last week. I'm gonna say that they lose their second straight game. The Redskins beat them at home.
Ooh. I think I'm gonna go with. I'm just gonna go with it for some reason. I don't know how they're gonna do it, and I don't know why they're gonna do it, but I think Cleveland goes into Arrowhead and hands the Chiefs their first loss of the year.
That's bold.
And they give Cleveland, that city that sense of hope back, only for them to lose it, obviously, in the next coming weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, looking forward to most this week. Not really in the NFL. A lot to look forward to. College football. I'm really looking forward to the Texas Tech Oklahoma matchup. See if Texas Tech's legit. See if Oklahoma, the loss was just a fluke.
Yeah, I think just college football again this week. I mean, last week was great with all the upsets. You had Vandy and Tennessee.
SEC got turned on its head.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss. I mean, I love it. Keep it coming. I'm just gonna be ready to watch some more college football this weekend.
Do you really need to ask me what I'm looking forward to?
I'm gonna say he's looking forward to. I think there's a Pee Wee football game.
Yeah, big Pee Wee
I
football tournament.
would say he's probably looking forward to his brother dominating the football field.
Yeah, shout out to you, buddy.
Austin. See
But
you guys.
for real though.
But for real, it's the World Series.
Series.
It's the World Series. Go Sox.
All right, let's go Steelers. Let's go Buckeyes.
Yeah. Let's go Big Reds.
All right, Big Reds on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Big Reds.
No one else did.